The day the galaxy learned to fear us was the day they made the worst mistake in their history. Not the day they discovered our planet. Not the day they invited us into their precious Galactic Council. Not even the day they looked down on us, called us primitives, treated us like animals at their table. No, it was the day they took our children. And for that, 2,000 years of unbroken galactic peace ended in fire. The year was 2347 by Earth's calendar. Humanity had crawled its way out of the cradle. We'd colonized Mars, built stations around Jupiter, and sent generation ships toward the nearest stars. We were loud, messy, and determined. And when the Galactic Council finally noticed us, a species barely capable of faster-than-light travel, they were not impressed. The Council had existed for over 2,000 years. 26 species, spread across 3 galactic arms, all bound together by the Pact of Serenity. For 2 millennia, there had been no wars, no invasions, no genocide. The Council had achieved what most civilizations only dreamed about, lasting, permanent peace. And they were very, very proud of it. When their scout ships arrived in our solar system, we thought it was first contact. The movies, the books, the dreams of generations, all coming true. Humanity celebrated. Leaders gave speeches. Children pointed at the sky and imagined a future of wonders. The Council saw things differently. Ambassador Vathari Solon, a tall, silver-skinned Draelith with arms and eyes like polished obsidian, was the first to address the United Earth government. He stood at the podium of the UN General Assembly, his translator device humming softly at his throat, and he delivered his message with the calm precision of someone reading a grocery list. Humanity, he began, you are species 27. You are the youngest, the least developed, and the most unstable species to be offered provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Your history is a catalog of violence. Your biology is aggressive. Your social structures are primitive and fragmented. He paused, letting that sink in. However, the Pact of Serenity requires that all spacefaring species be given a chance. You will be granted a probationary seat. You will have no voting rights. You will comply with all council directives, and you will be grateful. There was silence in the chamber. Then, because we were human, someone in the back row shouted, "And what do we get out of it?" Vathari blinked all 4 of his eyes. You get to survive. The first 50 years of council membership were humbling. Humanity was given access to technologies centuries ahead of our own. Medical advances that cured diseases we didn't even know we had. Energy systems that made fossil fuels look like rubbing 2 sticks together. Communication networks that connected our colonies in real time across light years. But the price was obedience. Every decision had to be approved by our council overseer, a Kralith bureaucrat named Coordinator Meldis, who had the personality of a wet napkin and the empathy of a calculator. She reviewed our colonial expansion plans, our military development, what little we were allowed, and our cultural exports. She was particularly disturbed by our music. This heavy metal, she said once during a review session, her gelatinous body quivering with what might have been disgust. It is sonically aggressive. It could be classified as a weapon under Section 14 of the Cultural Harmony Act. Captain Elena Vasquez, Earth's representative to the Oversight Committee, pinched the bridge of her nose. It's just music, Coordinator. It made my subordinate's auditory membranes vibrate so violently that she lost consciousness. That was a Metallica concert. She was in the front row. We told her to wear earplugs. Meldis made a note on her datapad. Humanity is advised to restrict sonic output in shared spaces. That was life under the Council. 1,000 small humiliations, every day, forever. But we endured, because the technology was worth it, because the stars were worth it, because we told ourselves that one day things would change. We had no idea how right we were. To understand what happened next, you have to understand the Pact of Serenity and the philosophy behind it. The Council species had fought wars once, terrible wars. The Draelith and the Morvani had nearly exterminated each other in a conflict that lasted 3 centuries and left entire star systems as irradiated wastelands. The Kralith had been conquered and liberated 4 times. The insectoid Chithri had waged a war of expansion that consumed 12 worlds before they were stopped. 2,000 years ago, after the last Great War, the surviving species came together and created the pact. Its core principle was simple: peace through conformity. All species would adhere to the same behavioral standards. Aggression would be managed. Competition would be regulated. And any trait that threatened harmony would be corrected. That was the word they used. Corrected. For most species, correction was minor. Dietary adjustments. Social restructuring. Limits on reproduction rates. Small sacrifices for the greater good. For humanity, they wanted something more. The Council had studied us. They had analyzed every war we'd ever fought, every atrocity we'd ever committed, every dark chapter in our blood-soaked history, and they had identified what they believed was the source of our violence. Our bonds, not our weapons, not our tribalism, not our territorial instincts. Our bonds. The Council scientists, led by the brilliant and thoroughly amoral Dr. Thesick Vorn of the Dralic Behavioral Institute, had concluded that humanity's greatest strength was also its greatest threat. We bonded too deeply. We loved too fiercely. We formed attachments so intense that when those attachments were threatened, we became capable of absolutely anything. A human who was fighting for resources could be reasoned with. A human who was fighting for ideology could be negotiated with. But a human who was fighting for their family, their children, that human would burn the universe to ashes and call it justice. Dr. Vorn presented his findings to the full council in a session that would later become known as the Thesick Report. The human pair bond and parental instinct, he explained, his silver face illuminated by holographic brain scans, is the most intense emotional response we had documented in any sentient species. It overrides logic, self-preservation, and even basic survival instincts. A human parent whose offspring is threatened enters a neurological state we have classified as protective rage. In this state, their pain tolerance increases by 300%, their reaction time improves by 40%, and their capacity for violence becomes essentially limitless. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Our recommendation, Vorn continued, is a program of graduated separation. Human children, beginning at age 5, would be relocated to council education centers, where they would be raised according to council standards. This would weaken the parental bond over generations and produce humans who are more compatible with galactic society. The vote was 25-1. The single dissenting vote came from the Morvani representative, who simply said, "This is unwise," and was ignored. Earth's provisional seat, of course, carried no vote at all. The notification arrived on a Tuesday. Captain Elena Vasquez, now Admiral Vasquez, 63 years old and tired in her bones, received it in her office aboard Terran Station Alpha, orbiting Earth. A formal communique from the Council, stamped with the seals of all 25 voting members. She read it once, then again, then a third time, because surely she was misunderstanding. She wasn't. Council Directive July 7-14, she read aloud to her staff, her voice unervingly calm. Effective immediately, all human children between the ages of 5 and 12 are to be registered and transferred to designated council education centers for cultural integration and behavioral correction. Non-compliance will result in sanctions up to and including the revocation of humanity's provisional membership and the quarantine of all human-occupied systems. The room was silent. Commander James Okonkwo, her chief of staff, was the first to speak. "They can't be serious. They are. They want to take our children." "Yes. All of them. All of them." Okonkwo's jaw tightened. He was a father of 3. His youngest, Amara, was 7. "What happens if we refuse?" "They blockade our systems, cut off our supply lines. We lose access to council technology, trade routes, medical supplies. Our outer colonies starve within a year. Earth holds out longer, but not forever. And if we comply..." Admiral Vasquez looked at him. In her eyes was something ancient and terrible, the same look that had been in the eyes of every parent, in every era, in every corner of human history, when someone threatened what they loved most. "We won't," she said. The council expected resistance. They had prepared for it. What they had not prepared for was the speed. Within 72 hours of the directive's announcement, every human colony, every station. Every ship in the fleet had received a message. Not the Council's message. Humanity's message. It was short. It was simple. And it was sent by Admiral Vasquez herself. They want our children. The answer is no. Prepare for what comes next. What came next was the fastest military mobilization in the history of the galaxy. The Council had always known that humans were dangerous. That was the whole point of the directive. To tame that danger, to breed it out over generations, to turn humanity into just another compliant species at the table. But they had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humanity's military capability was limited to what they could see, the ships they had registered, the weapons they had declared, the soldiers they had counted. They had no idea. For 50 years, humanity had smiled and nodded and said, yes, coordinator, and, of course, ambassador, while quietly, patiently, relentlessly building something else entirely, deep in the asteroid belts of a dozen systems, in hollowed-out moons and hidden shipyards. Humanity had been constructing a fleet, not with Council technology, with human technology, crude by galactic standards, maybe less elegant, less efficient, but built with something no Council engineer had ever factored into their equations: fury. Human ships didn't have the graceful curves of Drelith cruisers or the crystalline beauty of Morvani frigates. They were angular, brutal, covered in layered armor, and bristling with weapons that the Council had specifically banned under the Pact of Serenity: kinetic kill vehicles, nuclear-tipped torpedoes, railguns that could punch through a planet's crust. And something new, something humanity's weapons designers had developed in secret, combining Council energy principles with human ingenuity. They called them Sunbreakers, Planet Crackers. The Council would later name them in terrified whispers. The Council's enforcement fleet arrived at the Sol system exactly 14 days after the directive was issued. 40 warships, Drelith dreadnoughts, Krayla support vessels, Chithari fighter swarms. Enough firepower to glass a continent. Fleet Commander Torin Vel, a decorated Drelith officer with over 200 years of service, expected a negotiation, perhaps some posturing. Humanity would make noise, make demands, and eventually comply, as all species did. He opened a communication channel. Terran vessels. This is Fleet Commander Torin Vel of the Council Enforcement Fleet. You are in violation of Directive July 7th, 14. Stand down your weapons and prepare for compliance inspection. This is your only warning. The response came not from a military officer, but from a civilian, a woman. She was standing on the bridge of a converted cargo hauler, her hair pulled back, her face streaked with engine grease. Behind her, the ship's crew moved with quiet determination. "Commander Vel," she said, "my name is Sarah Chun. I'm a mechanic from Mars Colony 7. I have 3 children. The youngest is 5. She held up a wrench. "You're not taking them." Vel blinked. "Mrs. Chun, I don't think you understand the situation. We have 40 warships. You appear to have a cargo vessel." Sarah Chun smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Look behind me, Commander." Vel looked at his tactical display, and then he looked again, and then his forearms went rigid and his obsidian eyes widened, and for the first time in 200 years of military service, Fleet Commander Torin Vel felt something he had never felt before: fear. They came out of the asteroid belt like an avalanche. Hundreds of ships, thousands, converted freighters with welded-on armor plates, mining vessels with their drilling lasers refitted as weapons, military cruisers from the hidden shipyards, sleek and deadly and burning with purpose. And at the center of the formation, moving with the terrible grace of a predator, was the flagship of the Terran Defense Fleet, the TDF Unconquered, 2 kilometers of black steel and righteous anger, carrying enough firepower to make a star flinch. Admiral Vasquez's voice came over every channel, Council and Terran alike. "Fleet Commander Vel, this is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have threatened our children. I am going to give you 1 chance to leave. 1. Take it." Vel was a soldier, a good one. He knew what he was looking at. He knew, with the cold clarity of a tactician, that his 40 ships were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outnumbered. But he was also a Council officer. And the Council did not retreat. Admiral Vasquez, the Council's authority is absolute. You will comply or face the consequences. There was a pause, a long, terrible pause. Then Vasquez said very quietly, Commander Vell, I have grandchildren. My granddaughter turned 6 last month. She wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. She draws pictures of spaceships and tapes them to my quarters on this ship. Another pause. You will not take her. You will not take any of them. And if you try, I will personally ensure that your fleet becomes a debris field. You have 60 seconds. Vell did not retreat. 58 seconds later, the Battle of Seoul began. It lasted 11 minutes. The Council lost 32 ships. The remaining 8 fled to FTL, trailing smoke and panic. Human casualties. 14 ships damaged, 2 destroyed, 47 crew members killed. Each of their names was engraved on a monument that was built within the week. The monument read, They died so our children could live. The news hit the Council like a physical blow. For 2,000 years, no species had defied a Council directive. The Pact of Serenity was not just a treaty. It was an article of faith, the foundation upon which galactic civilization was built. And humanity had just taken that foundation and shattered it with a wrench and a cargo hauler. Emergency sessions were called. Ambassadors screamed at each other across the great circular chamber of Council Hall. The Draelith demanded immediate retaliation. The Kralith called for economic sanctions. The Chithari clicked their mandibles and said nothing, which was somehow more terrifying than anything else. And the Morvani representative, old Councillor Draith, who had been the lone dissenting vote, simply sat in his chair, his ancient eyes closed, and whispered, I told you this was unwise. No one listened to him. Again, the Council assembled the largest military force in 2,000 years. 300 warships drawn from 12 species. The Combined Enforcement Armada, they called it. Its mission, enter human space, neutralize the Terran Defense Fleet, and implement Directive July 7th, 14 by force. They appointed Grand Admiral Kesseth Moore, a Chithari Hive commander with a reputation for cold efficiency, to lead the assault. Moore studied the intelligence reports. She watched the recordings from the Battle of Seoul. She analyzed the human fleet's tactics, weapons, and capabilities. Then she called a private meeting with the Council leadership. I need more ships, she said. You have 300, said Ambassador Vathari. That is the largest fleet assembled since the founding of the Pact. Moore's compound eyes glittered. You don't understand. I've studied their tactics. Those weren't military maneuvers at Seoul. Those were the actions of a species that has been fighting wars for its entire existence. Every ship moved independently. Every captain made their own decisions. They adapted in real time to our formations. Our ships follow doctrine. Theirs follow instinct. She leaned forward. 300 ships may not be enough. Vathari's silver face hardened. Then make it enough. The Combined Enforcement Armada entered human space 6 weeks later. 300 warships, arranged in perfect formation, moving with the mathematical precision that the Council prized above all else. They headed for Proxima Colony, humanity's largest offer of settlement. 8 million people, over 1 million children. Admiral Vasquez was waiting for them. The Terran Defense Fleet had grown. Volunteers had come from every colony, every station, every corner of human space. Retired soldiers, active duty personnel, civilians with ships and something to fight for, teachers, doctors, miners, farmers, all of them armed, all of them trained, all of them absolutely clear about what they were protecting. Among them was James Okonkwo, now commanding his own vessel, the TDF Amara, named after his daughter, and Sarah Chun, the mechanic from Mars Colony 7, who had somehow become the most famous human in the galaxy. She was still flying her cargo hauler. She had added more armor, and more guns, and a hand-painted sign on the hull that read, Come and take them. The two fleets faced each other across the void between stars. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, the weight of 2,000 years of peace pressing down on both sides. Grand Admiral Moore opened a channel. Terran Fleet, this is your final opportunity to comply with Council authority. Surrender your children for education. Disarm your illegal weapons. and submit to council justice. Refusal will be met with overwhelming force. Admiral Vasquez's response was broadcast not just to the fleets, but to every inhabited system in the galaxy, every species, every world, every being with ears to hear and a mind to understand. Peoples of the galaxy, she said, my name is Elena Vasquez. I am a grandmother. I am a soldier. And I am speaking to you today because the Council, the body that claims to represent peace and harmony, has ordered the forced removal of our children from their families. She paused. I want you to imagine something. Imagine that tonight. Someone comes to your home. They come with authority. They come with soldiers. And they tell you that your child, the being you love more than your own life, the small face that looks up at you with perfect trust, must be taken away. Not because they are in danger, not because you have failed them, but because someone far away has decided that your love for them is too dangerous. The silence across the galaxy was deafening. That is what the Council has done. That is what they're doing right now. And we are here to tell them, to tell the entire galaxy, that there is no force in this universe that will separate us from our children. Not 300 ships, not 3,000, not all the fleets and all the stars. She took a breath. You can have your peace, Council, but you cannot have our children. And if you try to take them, you will learn something that every human child already knows. Her voice dropped to a whisper that carried across light years. You don't mess with someone's family. The second battle, the Battle of Proxima, was not like the first. It was not quick. It was not clean. It was the kind of battle that changes the shape of history. Grand Admiral Moore was brilliant. Her tactics were flawless. Her ships moved in perfect concert, their weapons firing in synchronized volleys that turned space into a killing field. The Council fleet had every advantage. Superior technology, superior numbers, superior coordination. They lost, not because they were outgunned, not because they were outmaneuvered, but because they were fighting a military engagement, and humanity was fighting something else entirely. Every human ship fought as if it were the last ship in the universe. Every captain made decisions not based on tactical doctrine, but on a simple, burning question. What keeps the children safe? Commander Okonkwo's ship, the Amara, took a direct hit to its port engine array 30 minutes into the battle. Half his engineering crew was killed. The ship was venting atmosphere from 3 decks. Any Council captain would have withdrawn. Okonkwo sealed the breached decks, rerouted power through the backup systems, and drove his crippled vessel directly into the heart of the Council formation, firing every weapon he had. His final transmission, before the Amara broke apart, was a single sentence: "Tell my children their father loved them." Sarah Chen's cargo hauler, somehow still flying, somehow still fighting, rescued 11 escape pods from the wreckage. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Council fleet lost over half its ships. The Terran fleet lost a third of its own. The void around Proxima was filled with wreckage and debris and the silence of the dead. But when it was over, Grand Admiral Moore did something no Council commander had ever done. She retreated, not because she had to. She still had ships. She still had weapons. She could have pushed through, could have forced her way to the colony, could have completed her mission, but she had watched the recordings. She had seen a cargo hauler charge a dreadnought. She had seen a crippled destroyer drive into the heart of her fleet. She had seen civilians, teachers, farmers, mechanics, fly directly into weapons fire without hesitation, without fear, without the slightest suggestion of surrender. And she understood something that the Council, in all its wisdom, had failed to grasp. You cannot defeat a species that is willing to die for its children. You can kill them, all of them, but you cannot defeat them, because they will spend their last breath, their last drop of blood, their last functioning neuron, trying to take you with them. Moore withdrew to Council space and submitted her resignation. Her final report contained a single recommendation: cancel Directive July 714. Immediately, do not engage humanity again. They are not what we thought they were. The Council did not cancel the directive. Instead, they debated. For weeks, they debated. The Hawks wanted escalation. The Doves wanted negotiation. The Neutrals wanted someone else to make the decision. While they debated, humanity did not wait. Admiral Vasquez, wounded in the Battle of Proxima, her left arm in a sling, a bandage across her forehead, stood before the Terran Defense Council and made a proposal that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. "We don't wait for them to come back," she said. "We take the fight to them." "That's insane," said General Torres. "We barely survived Proxima. Our fleet is damaged, our resources are stretched thin, and we're outnumbered 20-1. 26-1, actually," Vasquez corrected. "But that's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Vasquez pulled up a holographic star map. It showed Council space, vast, sprawling, covering a third of the galaxy, and at its center, a single point of light. "Thessera," she said, "the Council homeworld, the seat of power, the place where they voted to take our children." Torres stared at her. "You want to attack Thessera?" "No," said Vasquez. "I want to go to Thessera, with everything we have, every ship, every soldier, every civilian who wants to come, not to destroy it, not to conquer it, but to stand in their capital, in their council chamber, and look them in the eye and say, 'You will never touch our children, not now, not ever, and here is what happens if you try.' And then—" Vasquez smiled. It was Sarah Chen's smile, the one that wasn't friendly. "And then we show them the Sunbreakers." The Terran fleet departed from Proxima 6 weeks later. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled. Over 2,000 ships, ranging from military cruisers to converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers with welded armor, mining ships with drill lasers, passenger liners carrying families, actual families, parents and children, who refused to be separated, even by war. At the center of the fleet was the unconquered, battered but unbroken, carrying Admiral Vasquez, and the weapon that would change everything, the Sunbreakers. No one in the Council knew exactly what they were. The intelligence reports were fragmentary, contradictory, terrified. Some said they were planet killers. Some said they were star killers. Some said they were a bluff. They were not a bluff. The fleet moved through Council space like a storm. They did not attack civilian targets. They did not fire on stations or colonies. When Council military ships moved to intercept, the Terran fleet simply went around them, using FTL jumps that the Council's tacticians couldn't predict, because human navigation didn't follow Council star maps. It followed human instinct, the same instinct that had driven ancient sailors across unknown oceans, that had pushed explorers into unmapped wilderness, that had sent the first astronauts into the void with nothing but courage and math. Species after species watched the Terran fleet pass through their space. Most did nothing. Some sent ships to observe. A few, the Morvani, the Thesic, the quiet Vellani, opened their borders and let the humans through without challenge. Counselor Drath of the Morvani sent a private message to Vasquez as the fleet passed through Morvani space. "Admiral," it read, "I've voted against the directive. I knew this would happen, not because I understood your military capabilities, but because I understood your hearts. The Council sees your bonds as a weakness. I have always known they are your greatest strength. Go to Thessera, speak your truth, and may the stars have mercy on those who stand in your way." Vasquez read the message, nodded, and ordered the fleet onward. The Terran fleet arrived at Thessera on a day that the Council would remember for the rest of its existence. Thessera was beautiful, a jewel of a world, all shimmering oceans and floating cities and crystalline towers that caught the light of its twin suns, the seat of galactic civilization, the heart of 2,000 years of peace. The Council's home defense fleet, 500 ships, the finest in the galaxy, formed a wall between the Terran fleet and the planet. Behind them, orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons. Below, on the surface, billions of Council citizens looked up at the sky and wondered if the peace they had known their entire lives was about to end. Ambassador Vathri Solon, who had greeted humanity 50 years ago with contempt and condescension, stood in the Council chamber and watched the tactical display with all 4 arms clasped behind his back. "How many?" he asked. "Over 2,000 ships," said his aide. "Plus, Ambassador, we're detecting an energy signature from their flagship that we cannot identify. It's massive. Our sensors can't even properly classify it." Vathri's silver face was still. "The Sunbreakers?" "We think so, sir. Can our defenses stop them?" The aide was silent. Can our defenses stop them? Vathri repeated. We don't know, sir. We don't know what they are. Admiral Vasquez opened a channel, not to the military, not to the defense fleet, to the council chamber itself. Members of the Galactic Council, she said, I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. I have come to Thessera not as a conqueror, but as a mother, a grandmother, a member of a species that you have gravely underestimated. She paused. 6 months ago, you ordered the removal of our children. You called it education. You called it correction. You called it harmony. We call it what it is. The worst crime one being can commit against another. Her voice was steady, clear, carrying the weight of every parent who had ever held their child and whispered, I will protect you. I have not come here to destroy Thessera. I have not come to end your council or shatter your pact. I have come to make you understand something that your scientists, your ambassadors, your admirals have all failed to grasp. She took a breath. We are not like you. We do not love gently. We do not bond carefully. We do not form attachments that can be broken by distance or time or decree. When a human being loves, when a human parent loves their child, it is absolute. It is permanent. It is the single most powerful force in our biology, our psychology, our civilization. Your Dr. Vorn identified this. He called it threat. He called it protective rage. He recommended that you breed it out of us by stealing our children. Her eyes hardened. He was right about one thing. It is the most dangerous thing about us. But he was wrong about everything else. It is not a flaw. It is not a defect. It is the reason we survived a world that tried to kill us every single day. It is the reason we crossed oceans and climbed mountains and reached the stars. It is the reason that right now, 2,000 of our ships are floating above your homeworld, crewed by parents and teachers and farmers and mechanics who would rather die than let you touch a single hair on a single child's head. She leaned forward. I have a weapon on this ship that can crack your planet open like an egg. I will not use it. I don't want to, but I need you to understand that I could, that we could, that the species you dismiss as primitive and violent has built something that your 2,000 years of peace never imagined, because you never had a reason to imagine it. We did. You gave us a reason. You threatened our children. Silence. Here are our terms. They are not negotiable. Directive July 7th. 14 is rescinded. Permanently. Humanity's provisional status is revoked. Not our membership. Our provisional status. We will be full members of this council with full voting rights. No species will ever again be subjected to forced separation of families. And Dr. Thessic Vorn will be formally censured for proposing the systematic destruction of a species' fundamental nature. You have 1 hour. The council chamber erupted. 25 species screaming at each other. Accusation, threats, pleas, demands. The hawks wanted to fight. The doves wanted to surrender. The neutrals wanted to wake up from what was clearly a nightmare. Ambassador Vathri called for order. No one listened. It was Counselor Draith who finally stood. Old, frail, his Morvani body hunched with age. He walked to the center of the chamber and raised one trembling hand. The room fell silent, not because he commanded respect, though he did, but because he was the only one who had been right from the beginning. 2,000 years ago, Draith said, his voice thin but steady, we created the Pact of Serenity because we were afraid. Afraid of war, afraid of death, afraid of ourselves. And for 2,000 years, the Pact has kept us safe, but it has also kept us stagnant, compliant. We have traded passion for peace, individuality for harmony, love for order. He looked around the chamber. And now, a species has come along that reminds us what it means to feel. To love so deeply that the universe itself cannot break that love. And our response, our wise, considered, peaceful response, was to try to destroy that love. He shook his head. We were wrong, not just wrong in our tactics, wrong in our understanding. The humans are not a threat to our peace. They are a mirror showing us what we have lost. The willingness to fight for what matters. The courage to say no to authority. The love, the fierce, terrible, beautiful love that makes life worth living. He turned to Vathri. Accept their terms. Not because we are afraid of their weapons, though we should be. Accept their terms because they are right. And we are wrong. And 2,000 years of peace built on the suppression of love is not peace at all. It is a prison. The silence that followed was the loudest sound the council chamber had ever known. Then, one by one, the votes came in. The Morvani voted yes. The Velani voted yes. The Thesic, the species that had produced Dr. Vorn, voted yes, and their representative publicly apologized. The Chithri clicked their mandibles, and then, to everyone's astonishment, voted yes. The Kralith voted yes. One by one, species after species, world after world. 25 votes. 25 yes. Even the Dralith. Even Vathari Solon, who had told humanity to be grateful for the chance to survive. He voted yes. And then he sat down and put his silver face in all four of his hands, and was very, very still. The galaxy changed that day. Not immediately. Not easily. Change never is. But the old order, the rigid, sterile, lifeless order of the Pact of Serenity, cracked open, and something new began to grow in the gaps. Humanity took its seat on the council. Full membership. Full voting rights. Full voice. Admiral Vasquez retired from military service and was appointed Earth's first permanent ambassador. She brought her granddaughter to the ceremony. The little girl, 6 years old, with her grandmother's fierce eyes, drew a picture of the council chamber and taped it to Vasquez's desk. Sarah Chen went home to Mars Colony 7. She went back to fixing engines. She became, without wanting to, the most beloved human in the galaxy. Council citizens from a dozen species made pilgrimages to her repair shop, just to meet the mechanic who had told a fleet commander that he couldn't have her kids. She charged them for parking. Commander Okonkwo's children, Amara and her brothers David and Marcus, grew up in a galaxy where no one would ever try to take them from their family. Amara became a diplomat. She served on the council's newly created Family Rights Committee, which she co-chaired with Morvani representative who had been personally selected by Councilor Draith. The Sunbreakers were never used. They remained aboard the Unconquered, which was decommissioned and placed in orbit around Earth as a museum ship. A reminder, not a threat, a reminder that humanity had built the most terrible weapon in galactic history not out of aggression, but out of love, out of the desperate, all-consuming need to protect what mattered most. The Pact of Serenity was rewritten. The new version, the Pact of Understanding, did not demand conformity. It demanded respect. Respect for differences. Respect for bonds. Respect for the fundamental truth that every sentient being has a right to love and be loved, without interference, without correction, without fear. Dr. Thesic Vorn was not punished. Vasquez had demanded censure, but when the time came, she changed her mind. Instead, she invited Vorn to Earth. She took him to a park where human children were playing. She sat him on a bench and said, "Watch." He watched. Children running, laughing, falling down and crying, and being picked up by parents who kissed their bruises and told them everything would be okay. He watched a father carry his sleeping daughter on his shoulders. He watched a mother teach her son to catch a ball. He watched a grandmother sit on a blanket with her grandchildren, reading them stories, their small bodies pressed against hers with absolute trust. Vorn watched for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very small. "I didn't understand," he said. "No," said Vasquez. "You didn't. I thought the bond was a danger. I thought if we removed it, we would remove the violence." "The bond is a reason for everything," Vasquez said. "The violence, yes, but also the art, the music, the kindness, the sacrifice, the courage. Take away the bond, and you don't get a safer human. You get an empty one." Vorn was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My species severed our parental bonds 3,000 years ago. It was considered an evolutionary advancement. We raise our young in communal centers. We do not know our parents. We do not love our children." He paused. "We have not fought a war in 3,000 years, but we have also not written a song or painted a picture or told a story that made anyone weep. We are efficient. We are logical. We are peaceful." His voice cracked. "And we are so terribly, terribly lonely." Vasquez put her hand on his arm. The gesture was so human, so simple. So full of the warmth that his species had engineered away millennia ago, that Thesic Vorn, the architect had directed July 714, the scientist who had tried to break humanity's greatest strength, broke down and wept. It was the first time a Draelith had cried in 3,000 years. Years later, when historians wrote about the Human Council crisis, they struggled to find the right framework. Was it a war? A revolution? A diplomatic incident? The Morvani called it the awakening. The humans called it Tuesday. They were like that. The truth was simpler than any of those labels. It was a family refusing to be torn apart, scaled up to galactic level, armed with starships and planet crackers. But at its core, no different from any parent in any era who had stood between their child and danger and said, "No, not them, never them." The galaxy had known peace for 2,000 years, and it had been a good peace in its way, orderly, stable, safe, but it had been a peace built on the suppression of everything that made life worth living. A peace that said, be calm, be quiet, be less. Humanity had looked at that peace and said, no, thank you, not because humans loved war. They didn't. They were tired of war. Their history was drenched in it, and they carried the weight of every battlefield, every grave, every flag-draped coffin in their collective memory. But they knew something that the Council had forgotten. Peace without love is just silence, and silence, in the end, is just another kind of death. On the wall of the Terran embassy on Thesera, there is a plaque. It was placed there by Ambassador Vasquez on the day the embassy opened. It bears a simple inscription, translated into all 26 Council languages. It reads, "Do not take our children. We will come for them, and we will not stop. We will not tire. We will not negotiate. We will not surrender. We will cross every ocean of stars. We will break every chain. We will burn every barrier. And when we find them, we will hold them close and whisper, 'I'm here. You're safe. No one will ever take you from me again.' This is not a threat. This is a promise. This is what it means to be human." And the galaxy, which had known 2,000 years of peace, learned something new. It learned that there are some things more important than peace. And it learned to never, ever mess with humanity's children. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more HFY stories. Because in a galaxy full of ancient empires and advanced civilizations, sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is a parent with nothing left to lose.